It has been a very tumultuous few years for our neighbor to the south, Mexico. Its government continues to wage a bitter and violent battle against drug cartels. But at the same time, Mexico's economy remains strong and growing. We'll speak to Mexico's president in just a moment here. But first, a look at the complicated relationship between our two nations. Elected in 2006 by a margin of just 0.5%, Felipe Calderon became Mexico's president amid controversy and then quickly confronted the country's drug lords. Calderon was the first president to use Mexico's armed forces to fight the cartels. The casualties in Mexico's drug war have exceeded 40,000 now in 5 years. That is 6 times the number of Americans lost in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Welcome to the United States.
Calderon has found an ally in the Obama administration, but he says he wants more cooperation, like renewing the ban on assault weapons, which often make their way across the border. Securing that border has been a hot political issue, but the number of immigrants coming to America is actually at its lowest level in 40 years. There's been more job creation in Mexico than the U.S., and Mexican banks were better prepared to weather the global recession.
Mexican banks had a major crisis several decades ago and were straightened out then. Our banks are yet to be straightened out.
Led by jobs in manufacturing, unemployment in Mexico is below 6%, an economic recovery below our border that's proven in part beneficial to companies in the U.S.
More jobs in Mexico means more American products are sold there, and that's good for the country.
Calderon's term ends this year. His presidency likely remembered for overseeing an economic expansion while also struggling against a brutal drug war. And Felipe Calderon joins us now. Mr. President, good to see you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Thank you. Good morning.
I want to start by asking you about some of these comments you made at this dinner last night. You're in town to visit the UN, where you talked about drug consumption in the U.S. And you said if drug consumption can't be limited here, decision makers, quote, must seek more solutions. You talk about market alternatives. Are you talking about legalizing drugs?
I'm talking about market alternatives, market solutions. The point is the astronomical rentals that the criminals have coming from the consumption in the United States must to be addressed. And my point is either we reduce consumption or we need more alternatives, more solutions to at least to analyze, and among them, of course, we need to include the market alternatives.
Immigration reform, what should the U.S. do right now?
Well, I know that President Obama is working really hard on that. My perception is that Mexico, it's an ally of the United States, and our people are contributing to the prosperity of this great nation during almost a century. There is a very important point that I want to raise. If you analyze, for instance, the research of Princeton University, the rate of immigration to the United States coming from Mexico is almost reaching at 0. Probably negative in last year. Why? Because there are a lot of new conditions. One is the improvement of social opportunities for young people in schools, hospitals, and jobs opportunities. We have created last year more than 800,000 new jobs in Mexico. We grew at 5.4%. So the rate of immigration to U.S. from Mexican people is almost 0 right now. But that implies that we are doing our part on that. But it is necessary to establish a new legal framework in order to solve the situation of the people who is living in the shadows here in the United States.
You bring up your country's growth, more than 2 times as fast as the United States growth right now, thanks in part to manufacturing and the new jobs being created there. With the immigration issues that your country faces, as well as the drug war that's taking place, the violence that's taking place right now, if those 2 issues are not to be addressed and to be addressed soon, is there a chance that that growth is at risk down the road?
Well, let me tell you, somebody called this a Mexican paradox. How is possible that a country with such image of violence and so on is not only growing in economic terms, but also achieving very important points in terms of education or health? For instance, let me tell you that we are almost reaching universal health coverage in Mexico. So any single Mexican, we have a doctor, we have medicines, we have treatment, hospitals. I have built more than 1,000 new hospitals and clinics in Mexico in a little bit more than 4 years. So we are growing and achieving very important results for Mexican people.
When people in the United States, though, look at the headlines, they see the deaths. They see the 40,000 deaths that have taken place since 2006, and they wonder, how does this stop? What do you think needs to be done to put an end to this violence?
Well, I already mentioned that it is important to reduce the flow of money going to the hands of the criminals. But the strategy has 3 parts. One is to confront the criminals, to build new law enforcement institutions, and to rebuild social fabric in Mexico. We are working really hard in these 3 pieces. As long as we persevere in that goal, we will solve the problem. It's not a short-term solution, but there will be a solution, and we are working on that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. We appreciate it.